I wanted to talk about thought crimes. The idea of thought crimes is a very interesting one. Uh, People feel some pressure with regard to, human law. You know, Sometimes the law doesn't always work the way it should, and sometimes it's a little oppressive. But that's not to say that it has no good value for restraining and influencing the behavior, the the unloving behavior of people. Uh, but when we enter into this realm of policing not only your actions but your words and then your thoughts, people feel very claustrophobic. And one might say, well, it's impossible for you to attempt to restrain or police the thoughts of another person. I'm not sure that's true. Uh, I believe telepathy is a real thing. I believe there are people living on the earth right now that can read your mind, and that it's kind of a latent human ability. In fact, I think it happens all the time. I've noticed it happening at a few junctures in my life where, you know, it's fairly where I'm fairly sure that it definitely happened. And from what I understand, we have interactions with spirits all the time, and those spirits can not only read our minds but can uh, speak to us, and we can hear them. So that's something that's very difficult for some people, but yeah. So that puts it within the realm of possibility. Um, but it's an interesting thing. Something that I'm dealing with right now is uh, there's a possible investigation. I don't think it's this huge thing, but it could be. It could have some significant repercussions for my personal life, and that may not be a bad thing. In my most recent time away from work, where there was some concern that I would lose my job yet again. Interesting that these things keep coming up. I definitely have a lot of fear of losing my job, and so these events keep popping up where my job is in limbo. But anyway, in my most recent uh, time away from work, I felt that it was really, a moment where I need to step forward in some ways and talk about some things that I'm dealing with, namely pedophilia. That's still an issue for me. And when I was given the option to do some counseling for depression, I used that opportunity to talk about um, my issues with pedophilia. And the person who I spoke with about that said that they were a mandatory um, teller, or whatever you would say. They had to disclose this to authorities, disclose what I was revealing to authorities. Basically, what I had revealed was I had a minor situation with a 5-year-old where um, they basically, from my mind, they could feel and were receptive to an attraction that I found for her. That 5-year-old was receptive, and I guess she felt. I don't really want to go into her thoughts or motivations, but and I think there might have been some abuse in her past, but she felt that she wanted to move forward with it. And I think also, again, she was influenced by spirits in doing this. Um, but basically, I was lying down with her and another sister and her sister, and I was telling them a story, and I was very conscious of the fact that I was lying next to them, and that because of my attraction, this was not a very good thing necessarily, because I enjoyed being close to them. I enjoyed thinking of the possibility that I could get close to her. Her name was Sylvia, and she actually got on top of me after her sister left the room for a few minutes, and both of us with clothes on. She decided to begin to grind on me, actually, and I think I had a little bit of an erection. Everything was on, and of course, it was kind of like uh, it was restrained because of the clothes that I had on. But I don't think that she could necessarily feel it. But I was astounded that without my having said anything about some feelings that I found for her, she decided to do something. Um, this and other experiences that I've had in my personal life, I would like to write about at some point. I've never gone into detail about this stuff, but I think it requires a little bit more thought and perhaps some editing, to make it flow. And it's not as good when I make a video about it, but telling you about this event is not necessarily the purpose of this video. I just feel like I want to talk about it more generally, and it leads me to my point, which is that oh, and by the way, just to finish that little story, I pushed her off of me, and while some people, you know that's not necessarily the greatest thing. I mean, I think I showed some restraint, and I'm happy that I did. I wasn't going to have sex with her right there. I don't think I had sex, physically until that point, but I definitely felt some drive for her sexually, and that was very frightening for me. I didn't know who to go to. It's no excuse. I think those feelings had been building up for some time. It's just generally a sexually deviant mind that I have, where I think about everything, I investigate everything, every kind of attraction that could exist. But there are attractions that are worse, or that are more of an issue for me, which namely is an attraction for people who are like mother-son incest situations. That's that's more of a problem, I think, as far as the intensity. But you know, pedophilia definitely is a problem because it's to do with children. And some people, this is what I want to talk about here. Some people think that if you think about it and you don't do anything, you're all right. They even have a word for people like that. They call them virtuous pedophiles, and I have to disagree with that terminology. Um, I don't think there's anything virtuous about having pedophilic thoughts. Then you can say, well, then why do you have those thoughts? Um, I don't want to get into the hypocritical elements of it. Do I want this? Do I not want it? What's moral? Basically, I think it is immoral, but I have problems with it. So, yeah, I really don't want to put this video up right now because it's all about my problems, and I really wanted to make a short video, but I'm just going on here. Anyway, what I'm dealing with at the moment is that there's someone that called me who was notified of what I had told my counselor, and my counselor felt that I was grooming this child, and the degree to which that's true, I don't really feel that is true I think it is true to some degree, but I don't think it's overtly true because um, I didn't really know what grooming was. I felt my association with her was in jeopardy, and I liked my association with her generally. I liked these two children. Um, One of them I found sexual feelings for, but I liked my association with them, and I was a little surprised that what happened did, and I felt terrible because I didn't want to lose my connection with them, and it definitely got in the way. And once it did, I was almost hoping for a way to sever the connection so as not to harm the child. So in that respect, I feel that I wasn't grooming her, and when basically the next day, I don't know what went down, but the the uncle, the great uncle of the child, had me leave that place that I was staying. This was in Hawaii, and move in with another church family, and I was kind of happy for that. I was a little flummoxed by it, but it's almost like I was hoping for something like that to happen because I didn't know who to talk to about it, and I didn't feel like I had anyone to speak to about it. So anyway, that's just to say that I feel like I wasn't so much grooming her. I don't know, it's hard to say. I mean, in some respects, I noticed that I enjoyed, you know, being next to them, being so as close to them as I was, and I wasn't like manipulating the body, Sylvia's body sexually, but I was enjoying the closeness, and I think she was kind of touching me and enjoying my body being close to her. So that was definitely an issue, and in a way, my allowing that was an issue. But once she got on top of me, I pushed her away, and it took some strength, I might say, to do it. But I'm glad I did it. I'm glad that I chose to do that. Although what I found later was that I replayed that moment in my mind and I fantasized about being with her. And that's really where, you know, I committed what you might call a crime. Now, crimes, you know, by the standard of human law is one thing, but actual crimes, what you might call a sin, is another thing. Our choices, for good or ill, are known. And I know that everything that I've ever done will be accounted for and is accounted for. Um, and I've been calling. I was This person called me yesterday to talk to me because she said, I'm calling in reference to an alleged perpetrator situation, something like that. And I think to myself, was I really a perpetrator? By human law, I was not, because I didn't molest this child. But I know, as far as God is concerned, um, my feelings were felt by this child, and my influence was felt by this child. And in that respect, I was in error and I committed sin. So, if I call back this person who I need to talk to, who I feel I need to talk to, and she asks me if I feel that I'm a perpetrator, that's really the question. I don't feel that I am a perpetrator in regards to human law, but in regards to God's law, I am. Anyway, I don't know what's going to happen with my job. Obviously I begin to worry about my future, but, you know, my worries are not everyone else's worries, and I'm concerned about how much I just talk about my own problems as if, you know, which, how much am I just looking for sympathy from people, which is obviously an addiction? And how much am I really hoping to educate or help others? That's really what it comes down to when I make my videos. I try to have some kind of purpose behind what I say or what I share in my personal life. And I don't think I always hit the mark, but that's generally what I'm trying to do. So, I think it's an interesting question. People say, "What are they going to do now?" At least my thoughts are my own. They can't tell me what to think. And it's true. Anyone that's trying to make you think a certain way, I think persuasion is one thing, and coercion is quite another thing. To attempt to coerce someone or force someone into a way of thinking is sinful. But should you find that person willing for more knowledge and truth, um, giving them that truth and that information, or any kind of information, and also persuading them is a positive thing. When I think of persuasion, I think of, being gentle, a loving approach. And you would always, again, take into account whether they're interested, whether they have, you know, some interest in knowing the truth. And if they're not, and if they say as much, if they choose, if they object to dialoguing or interacting with you, then at that point you need to move on. And I think it's not out of the realm of possibility that, um, there, in some conspiracy research, they talk about how, there are messages that come from devices that are sent into your mind, literally, and you hear them, like in supermarkets or something. I don't know the veracity or the truth of that, but I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility. So, um, if that was the case, I think, again, that would be a coercive method. But so people that are concerned about their thoughts being manipulated, I agree with those people. People who are concerned with being manipulated generally, you know, I I find some solidarity with those people. But when it comes to thought crimes, when we talk about thought crimes, when I talk about thought crimes, it really is about feelings, because your feelings literally direct your thoughts. Your feelings literally direct your thoughts. So, should we be judged by our feelings? Yes. Should we be judged by our choice to make, you know, to feel or not feel our feelings? To, if we notice that we have a sinful intention, motivation, or desire, and we choose not to deal with that and remove that from our being, then we are opening, we are keeping the door open to take action on that desire. And that's the problem. And that's why I see, my pedophilia as a continued problem. Because I know it's not fully, I'm not at the point where I can say I would never desire that ever. So, until that happens, I have to be honest and say that I am a pedophile. I'm not willing to disclose that to everybody, but I think that it's important to be honest. All right. So yes, I think thoughts can be crimes in a way. Feelings can be crimes, and I'll leave it there. And hope I haven't made a mistake in posting this.